The real problem isn't that DIY projects are too hard. It's that most people are following plans that were never meant to be built in. You start with a clear idea. Maybe it's a table, a workbench, something simple. You've seen it before, maybe even saved a photo. It doesn't feel out of reach. So you find a plan. It looks legit. Clean layout, a few diagrams, maybe even some photos. Good enough to get started. And that's where it begins. You buy the materials, set aside your weekend, clear some space. There's a moment right before you begin where everything feels possible. Then you hit step 3 or 4, and something doesn't line up. A measurement feels off. A piece doesn't fit the way it should. The diagram shows the finished result, but not how to actually get there. So you double check. Maybe you measured wrong. Maybe you cut wrong. Maybe you misunderstood something. So you try again and again. But each time, the gap between what the plan says and what's actually happening in your hands gets wider. This is where most projects quietly die. Not in some dramatic failure. Just stalled. Parts sit on the bench. Half assembled. You tell yourself you'll come back to it next weekend. But you don't. And over time, something worse happens. You start to assume the problem is you. That maybe you're not skilled enough yet. That you need more tools. That you should start with something easier. So you go back online. Search again. Find another plan. And the cycle repeats. More time searching. More time second guessing. Less time actually building. It doesn't make sense. Because on the surface, woodworking isn't the problem. Cutting wood isn't complicated. Joining pieces isn't mysterious. These are learnable, repeatable actions. So why does it feel so inconsistent? Why do some people move from project to project, improving each time, while others stay stuck, starting but never finishing? At first, most people blame the obvious things. Tools. Maybe if you had a better saw, cleaner cuts would fix it. Experience. Maybe you just need more reps, more trial and error. Complexity. Maybe you pick something too advanced. Those explanations feel logical, and sometimes they're partially true, but they don't explain the pattern. Because even simple projects get abandoned. Even people with decent tools get stuck. Even after multiple attempts, the same problems show up again. So there has to be something deeper going on. Something structural. Think about it like this. Imagine trying to assemble furniture with instructions that skip steps. You're told where you should end up, but not how to move from one stage to the next. At first, you might improvise. Fill in the gaps. Make assumptions. But every assumption introduces risk. And in woodworking, small errors don't stay small. A measurement that's off by a fraction turns into joints that won't close. Angles that don't align. Parts that need to be forced into place. And once that happens, you're no longer building. You're troubleshooting, adjusting, recutting, compensating. And that's where momentum breaks. Because building feels productive. Troubleshooting feels like failure. So you slow down. You hesitate more. You second guess every step. Until eventually, continuing feels heavier than stopping. That's the hidden layer most people never see. It's not about effort. It's about clarity. The real issue isn't that DIY projects are too difficult. It's that the path between start and finish isn't clearly defined. Most plans show you what to build. Very few show you exactly how to build it, step by step, in the right order, with no gaps. And when that structure is missing, everything else starts to break down. Time gets wasted. Materials get wasted. Confidence gets chipped away. Not all at once. Gradually. Which is why it's so easy to misdiagnose the problem. But once you see it, things start to shift. Because finishing a project isn't about pushing harder. It's about removing uncertainty. When each step is clear, when measurements are precise, when the sequence actually makes sense, the experience changes completely. You stop guessing. You stop backtracking. You move forward. And finishing becomes a natural outcome, not a constant struggle. That doesn't mean every project becomes easy, but it becomes doable, repeatable, and most importantly, finishable. If you've ever had projects sitting unfinished, it's worth looking at the structure you're working from, not just the effort you're putting in. There's a difference between trying harder and following something that actually works. If you want a more structured breakdown of how complete plans are built and what to look for before you start your next project, there's a practical guide linked in the description. It walks through the key elements that make a plan usable from start to finish. And if you want to keep exploring ideas like this, you can subscribe. Most people don't need more motivation. They need fewer blind spots. And once those are gone, finishing what you start becomes a lot more predictable.